Good evening, everyone. All right, it is currently 6 o'clock, September 27th, the Board of Adjustments and Appeals. I'm going to call our meeting to order, and I'm going to ask us all to stand and pledge allegiance to the flag behind us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Kim, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Here.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Here.
Member Beckles,
Here.
Member Van Deven,
Here.
Member Wheelis.
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum. We can conduct business. If our board would like to, if you haven't already done so, if you want to take a look at the minutes attached to our agenda, and then I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? None. All right, so our minutes are approved. All right, now we have a pretty lengthy docket today. I think we have 7 agenda items. So I'm going to read off some guidelines for you all in the audience with a notice that starts. All persons who anticipate speaking on a public hearing item must fill out an oath card to be heard on that agenda item and sign the oath contained thereon. These cards are located on the table near the entrance to the council chamber or may be obtained from our recording secretary. This meeting will be conducted in accordance with the procedures adopted in Resolution 24-1997. Those speaking in favor of a request will be heard first, those opposed will be heard second, and those who wish to make public comment on an item will be heard third. Any applicant may make a brief rebuttal if necessary, and a representative from either side, for or against, may cross-examine a witness. Anyone who speaks is considered a witness. If you do have photographs, sketches, or documents that you want the board to consider, you will need to submit those items into evidence, and they'll be retained by the city. You can hand those down to our recording secretary at the end. So if those of you who are here to speak on an item, or if you're an applicant, you didn't already fill out an oath card, please go ahead and do that now and certainly before your item is called. All right, to our staff, hello, welcome. Have we properly notified and advertised all the agenda items?
Yes.
All right. And to our board members, have any members visited any of the sites or spoken with any of the people or anybody about the items we're hearing today?
No.
No and no for me, so no across the board. We do not have any consent agenda items, nor do we have any old business. We do have a lot of new business to get to. So starting with variance number 16-2023, which is 2671, is it Susanna Lane? Susana. I will turn it over to staff. I know, I was reading this stuff, I was reading the double S.
Before we start, I'd like to introduce you to our new staff member. We have Senior Planner Christy Anderson with us. She will present the items this evening.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. So this is variance number 16-2023. It's on page 10 of your packet. The variance request is to encroach, is to encroach into a front and side yard setback for property located at 2671 Susanna Lane, submitted by David Blumenthal as authorized by representatives of TPK Investments LLC owner. The future land use on the property is low-density residential. The zoning is single-family low-density. The surrounding zoning districts are all single-family low-density residential. The lot characteristics, the subject property contains approximately 16,988 square feet and is irregular in shape. Along its frontage, the property has approximately 275 feet of frontage on Susanna Lane and the cul-de-sac terminating Susanna Lane. The current use on the property is vacant residential land. Section 34-22, 226 states that the board shall grant a variance request when, in the opinion of the Board of Adjustments and Appeals owing to special conditions, the literal enforcement in such ordinance or regulation would do manifest injustice to or impose an unnecessary hardship upon the applicant. In order to authorize any variance to the provisions of such ordinance, the board must consider the following criteria. A, special conditions and circumstances exist which are peculiar to the land, structure, or building involved, and which are not applicable to other land, structures, or buildings in the same zoning district. Special conditions and circumstances do not result from the actions of the applicant. Granting the variance requested would not confer upon the applicant any special privileges that is denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The literal interpretation of the provisions of the ordinance would deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by the other properties in the same zoning district under the terms of the ordinance. The variance granted is the minimum variance that will make possible use and reasonable use of the land, building, or structure. The granting of the variance will preserve the spirit of the ordinance and remain in harmony with its general purpose and intent. In granting the variance, the public safety and welfare must be assured. In no case, the granting of variance will result in a change of use, which would not be permitted in that zone. The applicant is requesting a variance to Chapter 28, Section 28-303, single-family low-density R1A, to reduce the 30-foot minimum required front yard setback to 23.2 feet and to reduce the 15-foot minimum required interior side yard setback to 10 feet in order to construct a home with the same orientation as the neighboring single-family residence. The configuration, well, the survey is provided to you on page 21. That'll kind of show you the configuration of the lot. The configuration of the roadway suggests that the subject property is a corner lot. However, the lot is not located at an intersection of two streets. Therefore, the minimum required front yard setback of 30 feet is required along the entire frontage. The survey and concept plan submitted by the applicant demonstrates that there remains a substantial amount of building area to the east, front, and west rear of the proposed single-family residence. There appears to be potential to redesign the structure to remain in the same building area with minimum building setbacks. Staff has made a recommendation of denial of the variance request, noting while there are special conditions which are particular to the land, the granting of the variance requested would confer upon the applicant special privileges that are denied by the ordinance to other lands, buildings, or structures in the same zoning district. The variance is not the minimum necessary to make reasonable use of the land, and there is an option to reconfigure the home to be located within the building footprint without a variance.
Thank you. Any questions to staff? Seeing none. Any cards, Ms. Kim?
Clint Griffin?
Mr. Griffin?
I have pictures.
Okay, if you would start off by stating your name and your address.
I'm Clint Griffin. My residence is 2661 Susanna, right next door to this lot.
Okay, and we're happy to take your picture. Did you want to tell us anything first?
Yeah, so I've been there since 2014, and every big storm, some of them aren't even hurricanes, but definitely with hurricanes, my house already turns into an island with no house on that lot. So my fear is that if, those setbacks are there for a reason, if they're shorter than we've all built in that neighborhood already, I think there's going to be a flooding problem on that property, ours, and the two vacant lots that are in the cul-de-sac. Because if you look at these pictures, you'll see that all around my house, I'm basically like Hawaii. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you see it. So if there's only 10 feet between my house and theirs, where's the runoff from our roofs going to go, right? I believe it's already going to require at the 15-foot setback between two properties a French drain, because that's what the majority of the neighborhood has already had to do because of the flooding problem. So I just think, I'm against it because of that reason only. I understand that they want to put a house a certain orientation and everything, but there's only 3 empty lots in that neighborhood out of I believe it's 16 total lots, and we've all built within the variances and they were all very similar, right? So this one, I believe, just needs to stay within that, and then we have to roll the dice, right? But making them that much smaller just decreases, you know, the actual ground to absorb water. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with this neighborhood, but there's not a house in there that's probably less than 3,500 square foot. So there are already, I believe, two smallest setbacks for the size of the lots, which are just under a quarter acre, or just under a half acre, excuse me. So 15 and 30 to me is already too small for those size of lots, for how size the concrete footprint are on those properties. So making it smaller just makes absolutely no sense.
Thank you. We'll pass the pictures and we'll take a look. Kim, are there other cards for speakers?
No, ma'am.
Okay. After the board takes a quick look at your pictures, we'll see if they have any questions for you.
Okay. And the pictures of the woods is the lot in question. And I do have flood insurance, so. I was required to.
All right, now that the board has taken a look at the pictures, does anybody have questions for Mr. Griffin? No? All right, we're gonna hang on to those, but thank you, sir, you can be seated. And there's no other cards.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I will close the public portion of the hearing. We can bring it back to the board and discuss amongst ourselves or ask any additional questions of staff.
After looking at it, it does look like it's already pretty much flooded out, and I'm kind of in agreement with the gentleman that just spoke. I don't know how putting another house in there is going to, it's going to make the problem worse as opposed to better.
Well, they're definitely putting a house there. It's just a question of whether we can
Well, and
limit
it's-
the setbacks.
No, I don't think we should, I don't agree with making this, allowing the variance, especially if the house can be reconfigured within the, within this lot and stay within the guidelines here.
Any other comments?
I have one question.
Yes.
We're not sure the applicant is in the audience. We did provide this information and the agenda to the applicants. So I don't know if you want to ask if anyone in the audience, if the applicant would be willing to speak. If they're not here, that's something for you to consider.
Is the applicant here on this case? Are you all here, are any of you all here on this property, regarding this property or variance? No.
I thought you did kind of say, you said that earlier,
Made an
didn't you?
announcement. With them not being here, it was properly noticed, right? And-
Yes, it was noticed, so it's your call, I guess, to say whether you want to continue the public hearing or your discussion and make a decision tonight, or potentially continue it to the next meeting to allow the applicant another chance to rebut.
Has the applicant provided any notice to the city of any difficulties or delay or lack of attendance or reschedule needs?
ma'am. No, ma'am.
I mean, if it's properly noticed and the date is provided in an adequate time frame, then I would be inclined to go forward. If anyone on the board has a difference of opinion and would like to express that, I'm happy to hear you out.
I just have a question. The gentleman that spoke, what relation to the property in question do you have?
He's the neighbor.
Just a neighbor?
I'm the neighbor, yeah. The only neighbor to
Did
the property.
is the applicant aware you were coming?
there's a sign on that property
Okay.
that, I don't know who put it there, but I seen it, and I'm sure they should have seen it. It's their property, right?
Thank you.
City posted that sign.
The city, does the city provide, does the city, what do I want to say? Coordinate this date with the applicant?
Yes, when we do the pre-application meetings and discussions with them, they know what the deadline is in order to meet a certain meeting date. They also receive from the clerk a copy by email of the agenda to the email that they provide to us with their application.
Okay, thank you. I'm inclined to go forward. Anybody else?
I agree with you and the chair that I don't think my answer would change from this month or next month.
All right, so let us continue with our discussions amongst ourselves. Any further discussion, or if anyone wants to make a motion, I will entertain that now.
I'm not ready to make a motion, but the applicant, in his own words, seemed to be more concerned with the HOA requirements with the setback and not so much the flooding, in his words. I don't see anything regarding flooding in the paperwork that he filled out. Just want to mention that.
It's Ms. Anderson, right? Anderson?
That's correct.
Okay. Ms. Anderson, looking at, for instance, page 23 of the PDF, where the red highlight is the subject property.
Yes.
My understanding is that the house will be situated so that it is on, for lack of any sort of direction on this map, to the right. The front of the house will be to the right, facing the same direction as Mr. Griffin's property.
Correct.
And can the house fit facing straight away with the backyard to Mr. Griffin's house and be within the building requirements under their current footprint?
I believe if the house was redesigned, that it could fit within those building setback requirements if it was reconfigured, yes.
So if the front of the house faced more toward the opening of the cul-de-sac, is that what you're saying?
That'd be north.
Is it north?
That is north, yes.
Yes, that would be correct. I don't believe that there's any requirement for the,
Oh, go ahead. Oh, were you going to finish your thought? Go ahead.
I don't believe that there's a requirement for the house to be facing the direction that it's been proposed at.
I'm just wondering if the same proposed structure, the footprint of the house, was simply turned facing the other side of the street, if it would then meet all the building code.
So if you look at page 21 of your packet, you can kind of get an idea of if this building was reoriented, just turned 90 degrees, and facing, the garage area facing Susanna, you can see the building envelope on that drawing. That's that box or kind of that rectangle there in the middle there. That's the building envelope. That's where you're supposed to put your building. So if you turn that building a little bit, it looks like the length of that side of that house, looks like it's 65 feet. And I'd have to measure this out to see for sure, but just eyeballing it, looks like it might still encroach even possibly in the front yard setback a little bit, even if it's turned. But the encroachment might not be as significant as what's being requested.
That's what I was considering, because I see the other two available lots in the cul-de-sac. That would sound like a hard sell if they had to meet these requirements. So bottom line is, they can turn the house and encroach less, if at all. Okay. Any other questions or discussion amongst ourselves? Would anyone like to make a motion? Page 8 of the PDF should give some guidance.
Okay, I will make a motion that we deny variance number 16-2023 at 2675 Susanna Lane due to that house could be reconfigured to meet current restrictions.
But it's 2671,
26, that's it.
you said 75.
I did, didn't I? All right. 2671. Thank you.
Is the denial recommendation for your motion based on a specific criteria that you see? The option being that there is a minimum, it doesn't meet the minimum variance requirement, or is there something else that you see?
No. The denial is based on the not meeting the minimum requirements for setbacks on the property as configured.
I'll second that motion.
All right, I have a motion and I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes?
Member Beckles,
Yes.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Member Wheelis.
All right, that is a unanimous decision. The variance request is denied. The applicant is not here to hear that, but I'm sure something will be sent out to them. Mr. Griffin and anyone else who's here on that particular variance, you're free to go. You're also free to listen to the next 6. All right. We're moving on to the second variance of the evening. That would be number 18-2023 at 2300 Fox Hollow Drive. I will turn it over to staff and Ms. Anderson.
Thank you. On page 32 of your packet, the staff briefing begins. Variance number 18-2023, located at 2300 Fox Hollow Drive. The variance request is to waive the requirement of a terminal island that is otherwise required for each row of the interior parking spaces to terminate the row of parking for property located at 3200 Fox Hollow Drive, as submitted by Rescom Constructors LLC, as authorized by Representative Wholesale Premium Properties LLC. The future land use on the property is high-density residential. The zoning is multi-family, high-density residential. The surrounding properties to the north, south, and east are also high-density residential zoning, multifamily. And to the west, it's single-family, medium density. The lot characteristics, the subject property is a vacant lot, approximately 0.32 acres in the Fox Hollow subdivision. The surrounding properties consist of multifamily and single-family residences. There is an approved variance on this property, reducing the required landscape yard from 20 to 10 feet. That was previously approved under variance 4-2022. The applicant is requesting a variance to waive the requirement of a terminal island that is otherwise required for each row of the interior parking spaces to terminate the row of parking. Section 30-382 of the code states that terminal islands shall be required for each row of interior parking spaces to terminate the row of parking. Approval of the variance would waive the required terminal island. The applicant wishes to develop the property so that it appears identical with the surrounding structures. In addition, being that the surrounding lots are developed with multifamily dwellings, the applicant believes that the design of the proposed development should be similar in architectural, landscaping, and parking conditions. The subject property is approximately 150 feet deep, according to the submitted drawings titled Site Plan Overview 006, which is provided in your packet on page 45. The property appears to contain sufficient developable area to shift the building and parking area to further to the west in order to meet all of the required land development regulations, including parking, landscape buffers, building setbacks, parking areas, and landscaping. Staff has made a recommendation of denial of the variance to waive the requirement of a terminal island to terminate the row of parking. The provided concept plan appears to demonstrate sufficient space within the buildable area to shift the building west towards the rear to accommodate the terminal parking island. The proposed building is consistent in size to the other lots in the Fox Hollow subdivision.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Staff, have we not already approved that we're giving up the terminal island on all the other applicants on this, in this particular area?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
I know you weren't here. I guess you'll have to answer this. We've previously allowed the termination of the islands, if I'm not mistaken, on all our other votes. Why is this vote different?
This one's a larger piece of property, so they have the option to provide that. The other examples that you're referring to, the past ones, those are shorter lots. So the argument that was made in those cases was that there wasn't enough space to be able to provide that landscaping. Whereas here, you can see on page 45 of your packet, it's a much longer parcel rather, of this entire area. And so in this example, they had the option of being able to move the building a little bit further back and still provide the landscaping that's required as far as their parking. What the applicant's asking, though, is for this building to be the same plane as all the other buildings in this development.
That's what I was getting at. If we move it back, though, this one would look different than the rest of them. Is that correct?
Possibly, yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, any cards?
Abby Offerman?
Abby Offerman, welcome back. Thank you. If you would again, please state your name and address.
Hello, Abby Offerman, 2487 Aloma Avenue, Winter Park, Florida. As you may be familiar, our intent is to match the surrounding conditions as closely as possible. And we would also like to keep the impacted area, or the area impacted by construction, down to a minimum. And also to manage the construction costs to be able to offer these as affordable housing. So I would like to request discussion of a slight alternative to completely waiving the terminal islands, possibly doing a 5-foot terminal island between the parking area and the building. That would allow for a little bit of extra space for maneuverability for vehicles. And then also requesting complete waiver of the terminal islands between the parking area and the street.
Based upon the questions that we had just asked of staff, and I'm trying to recall the details, you're not requesting, today I can see you're not requesting a reduction to the landscape buffers. Is that going to be coming in the future, or are you going to be able to meet all your landscaping?
The landscape buffer variance has already been reviewed and approved as previously.
Okay, so it was this exact building? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was 10 feet now on the front border of the property.
Right, okay. Any other questions? Oh, I'm sorry, were you done your presentation?
Yes.
Any other questions of Ms. Offerman?
Yes. If you construct the building as you proposed with this waiver of the terminal island, it will reflect the same front facade as all the rest of the buildings within the development.
Yes, that is what it's designed for.
So we're looking for consistency in the development, okay?
That's correct.
Any other questions? Nope. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kim, any other cards?
No, ma'am.
All right, I'll close the public portion of this hearing. I'll bring it back to the board for discussion amongst ourselves or questions of staff.
I am personally inclined to keep it designed as far as the frontage with the other units, even though this is a new one. I can see other people going, well, why was that set back? Why we weren't the same? I would be inclined to approve this variance myself.
And I think we've already set a precedence for approval based on prior hearings and, the evidence. So I'm ready to make a motion if there isn't any other conversation.
Any other discussion? Okay,
Okay. I make a motion to approve the variance, number 182023 at 2300 Fox Hollow Drive.
okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Member Beckles?
Yes.
Member Van Deven?
Yes.
Member Wheelis?
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez?
Yes?
Vice Chairman Taylor?
Yes.
All right, so the variance is approved as requested. You are also free to go. You're also free to stay. No one ever wants to stay. All right, variance, the third item, our third variance that we're gonna deal with today is going to be variance number 19-2023, found at 11 South Washington Avenue. Staff?
Thank you. Yes, this is variance number 19-2023, a variance request to the land development regulations to allow more than the maximum of one wall sign with a wall face of 1,001 to 2,000 square feet located at 11 South Washington Avenue, as submitted by Robin Kendall, as authorized by representatives, Penland Titusville LLC owners. The future land use on the property is downtown mixed use. The zoning district is downtown mixed use with the downtown sub-district. The surrounding zoning districts all have the same zoning as the subject property. The lot characteristics, the subject property is approximately 0.92 acres and it's irregular in shape with approximately 125 linear feet of frontage on South Washington Avenue and 280 linear feet of frontage on Orange Street. The current use is a restaurant, which is consistent with the downtown sub-district of the DMU zoning district, the downtown mixed use. The applicant is requesting a variance to Article 2, Section 32-56 of the Land Development Regulations to allow 2 wall signs in lieu of the maximum of 1 on the same wall facade. The building facade will face a local road, Orange Avenue. The applicant is requesting the addition of a second wall sign on the south elevation facing Orange Avenue. The applicant is proposing to demolish the existing building. A site plan was approved to construct a restaurant. Section 32-56 of the LDR, the maximum number of all wall signs per wall facade is 1, if the square footage of the wall face is 1,001 to 2,000 square feet. There will be a 10-foot tall monument sign on the property in addition on the corner of Washington Avenue and Orange Street for additional visibility. And there's also a 33 square foot proposed wall sign on the west elevation facing South Washington Avenue. Staff's made a recommendation of denial of the variance to allow more than 1 wall sign on the south elevation facing Orange Avenue. As there are no special conditions or circumstances that are peculiar to the property, granting the variance would confer upon the applicant a privilege denied by others. The literal interpretation of the code would not deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by others, and the variance is not the minimum necessary to make reasonable use of the property.
Thank you. Any questions to Ms. Anderson?
Yes, I guess I would ask, when I look at the photos, and I'm looking at page 79 and 78, or 80, I'm sorry, at the present time, there are 2 signs on the west side of the building facing US 1 and 1 sign on the other side. Has the city regulations changed since that property was built, where they were allowed 2 signs on one side?
Yes. The downtown code was adopted in 2010.
And do you have an idea when this was built?
This was built prior to that.
Just prior to that? No, this is not 56, no. This was redone since I've been in town. Well, this building, yeah, they tore down the other one completely and rebuilt this one, so this is, this.
Any other questions, Ms. Anderson?
So was it going to be a sign on the north side, the west side at all now? I just saw the diagram, it just showed signs on the, I guess, it was the south side of the building.
Take a look at page 68 of your packet. So you'll see the illustration of where the sign's proposed.
Yeah. And I didn't see one on the west side of the building.
So according to the applicant, there will be a sign on the west side facing US 1. What the applicant is asking is for 2 signs to face Orange Street. So the code allows 1 sign per facade that faces a street. If the property is on a corner lot, it does allow 2 signs for 1 on each facade, facing 1 street, facing one of each street.
Okay.
What the applicant's asking is for a total of 3 signs, 2 of them to face Orange Street.
Okay, I'm just looking at, unlike the ones they propose, they have red lines and they show it, but I don't see a sign on the west side. Do you have a line or a location where that would be?
I don't have any more information, or we don't have any more information other than what we have here, but the applicant can certainly answer questions
Okay.
about that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, if there's no more questions of staff, open up the public hearing. First card,
Robin Kindle.
Robin Kindle.
Hi, good evening.
Welcome. If you would please state your name and address.
Robin Kendall, 10,002 Princess Palm Avenue, Tampa, Florida. I guess the bottom line is, we do have a sign, what we call the button sign, right here. That'll be on the tower on the Washington side. There'll also be a button, a 5-foot button on the tower on this side. But what we're requesting is this Home of the Whopper, which is basically the same that's on the existing building now, on the west side, facing Washington Avenue. The sign code doesn't allow for two signs on one side. We have one, again, it was done prior to the development of the updating of the code, but both signs combined, we could put a bigger sign on that side of the building than what we have. Both of those signs equal the max allowed per the code. The sign that we're requesting is just Home of the Whopper. It's a Burger King brand.
All right, any questions from the board?
Ma'am, I do have some more information to add. To Mr. Taylor's question about elevations, we do have an elevation that was submitted to us by the applicant that was not included in your packet. I've added it to Agenda Star, so you should be able to see it if you minimize your agenda and open up that icon. You see the elevation there. But I'll ask the applicant if this is accurate. This is what we have in our application.
That is correct.
Okay. If you need a moment for us to show you how to do that, we can certainly do that. But just minimize your agenda. You see on the desktop, you'll see an icon called Agenda Star, and I've saved the elevation in that folder for you.
While they're doing that, I want to ask you a question. So the sign that you want, the second sign that you want to add is actually just the words "Home of the Whopper"?
Yes, ma'am.
The way it is on the
Little
elevation
canopy.
that's facing Washington Avenue?
Right.
On the west
This won't
side.
be a mansard roof anymore. It'll be straight up and down. There'll be a canopy coming over the front doors, which face Orange Street. And above that little canopy will be the words "Home of the Whopper."
Thank you.
This property is split by an easement that's for a force main that's the city has through the middle of the site, as you can see on the site plan. It kind of runs right straight through there. It's something we have to maintain. That's why that's why you see that road running through there, or the access running through there.
Any other questions to Mr. Kendall?
Looking at the existing square footage of the signage on the property now, is it more or less?
It's probably equivalent. And one thing about this property as well, we're reducing the overall impervious areas. So there's going to be, as you know, the parking lot comes up to the sidewalk now. We're having green, we have landscape areas all throughout with good landscaping.
Thank you.
So it'll be an overall improvement. I mean, we're taking the building down, taking the parking lot out, taking out all the utilities, just redoing it.
Understand. Thank you.
Sure.
Out of curiosity, the monument sign that's going to be placed separate from the building out front, is that going to be smaller than the sign that's there right now,
I'm not sure.
which is massive?
Well, I guess the existing sign, is the existing sign a pylon sign or a monument sign?
It's a pole sign, isn't it?
I'm not sure. I think it's a pole sign,
And I think
but I think
we have to do a monument sign though on this, right?
I believe so. And so
Code
you
has
do,
changed there, so we
Yeah.
have to, we're meeting that one.
So the big sign will not be there in the future then?
yeah, I'm looking at the site plan, and when this went through, there was a proposal for a location of the ground sign proposed at the southwest corner of the property.
Yes.
in the landscape areas. I believe that that is going to be a replacement sign.
Okay, yeah, I see it down at the bottom there.
All right, any further questions to Mr. Kendall? No? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any other cards?
No, ma'am.
No other cards. I'll close a public portion of the hearing, bring it back to our board for discussion. I do want to ask one question to staff, kind of just a out of curiosity question. Looking at the elevation and knowing that there's a traditional sign, as we would define it, and then a word sign, would these two have to be connected to equal one sign?
That's why the applicant is asking for a second sign. Because if they are connected, it's considered one sign, and it has to meet the minimum or the maximum dimension requirements of what the sign code says for the facade. In this case, the applicant's asking for a completely separate sign.
Okay, so following the intent of the code then, or the spirit, I should say, if these were combined, does that actually meet the requirements if it was one sign, like the square footage?
Yeah, the applicant can answer that because they have to
He's
demonstrate
nodding
that with a
yes behind
permit.
you.
I mean, they'll have to demonstrate that through a permit process, but I'll refer you to page 74 of your packet. We've included an excerpt from the code that's specific for the downtown. You see that first table there? So basically, the measurement of the facade of this building facing Orange Street is between that 1,001 and 2,000 square feet. So then they are, have a maximum wall sign area in square feet of 60. And the way we interpret that, that is cumulative of any number of signs that may be permitted, because currently the code would only allow one sign facing that facade. So the applicant's asking for a second sign. The cumulative square feet of all signs then would have to fit under that 60.
Okay, Mr. Kendall?
Yes, ma'am.
The measurements is a total of, or less than 60 square feet between
Yes.
the words and your
60
button
or
sign?
less, yes.
Okay.
We did have originally a 5-foot or a 6-foot BK logo sign on it. We reduced it to 5 in order to meet the 60 square feet or under requirement.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions to staff or discussion amongst ourselves?
What I'm seeing is a total of 50 square feet for the signage on, proposed on that elevation, if you look at page 68.
What page?
68. So,
Oh, I see it.
point being, that's considerably less than 60 square feet, which they're actually allowed in one sign.
Any further discussion? And if none, is anyone ready to make a motion?
Madam Chairwoman, I move to approve variance 19-2023, 11 South Washington Avenue, allowing a second sign on the south elevation of the property,
As presented on page 68?
as presented on page 68.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Be-
Oh, I
Just to
have comment.
clarify that motion, I'm sorry. So the motion you're saying as illustrated on page 68, so that if this motion is approved, would be based on the approval of the permit be based on this illustration. The code currently allows the wall signs to be up to 60 square feet. Are you indicating that the maximum would be restricted to what's illustrated here?
I don't think we want to restrict them to that point.
I know
we're just-
I'm sorry, my intention was home of the Whopper in channel letters would be fine, but putting a whole different sign as a second sign was, I don't think is the board's intention.
I think what he's saying is that the code says it has to be under 60 square feet, and he's saying his proposal is saying as proposed here. I mean, his motion is saying as proposed here, and it's 50 square feet. I think he's asking, do you want to restrict them to 50? Is that what you're asking, Brian?
I intent, and if that's not, then we will understand that if this is approved, that they will be able to utilize the full 60 square feet potentially
Because it would
for
still be
cumulative
within the,
of all signs. Okay.
The
That's how we
condition-
would understand it if that was
The
approved.
condition would be that it remain under 60 square feet total
Well, it'll be per the code.
per code.
Okay.
Okay. That's the motion. Any second?
I'll second it.
I have a second. Any further discussion amongst the board? Seeing or hearing none, roll call, please.
Member Wheelis,
Yes,
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes?
Member Beckles,
Yes.
Member Van Deven.
Yes.
Okay. The variance is approved. Thank you, Mr. Kendall. You are also free to go. All right, next up, we are going to address variance number 20-2023, located at 875 Edgewood Road. Staff?
Okay, on page 83 of your packet, we have variance number 20-2023. Variance request to the Land Development Regulations, Chapter 28, Section 28-304, single-family medium-density R1B. Section 28-304C to allow an east side setback of 7.8 feet and a west side setback of 8.2 feet instead of the 10-foot minimum requirement for the property located at 875 Edgewood Road, as submitted by Don Human and as authorized by Representative Chris E. Curtis and Joan E. Curtis, property owners. The future land use on the property is low-density residential. The zoning district is single-family medium density. The surrounding zoning districts are also the same zoning district as the subject property. The lot characteristics is, the lot is rectangular with approximately 75 feet of linear frontage on Edgewood Road and has a depth of 110 feet. The lot does meet the minimum lot dimensions for the R1B zoning district. The property contains a 1,300 approximately square foot single-family residence, which was originally constructed in 1959. The current owners purchased the property in 2002 and desire to remodel and expand the existing residence. The applicant is requesting an east side setback of 7.8 feet instead of the required 10 feet in order to construct a front and rear addition onto the home. The proposed addition would also be aligned with the existing front face of the residence, which currently meets the 25-foot front setback requirement. The applicant is also requesting a west side setback of 8.2 feet instead of the required 10-foot minimum in order to construct a rear addition. The rear addition would not encroach into the required 25-foot rear setback requirement. The residence does not meet the minimum side setback requirements currently for the R1B zoning district and is a non-conforming structure. Neighboring residential lots are similar in size and configuration. Many of the surrounding residences are also non-conforming structures which do not meet the minimum side setback requirements of the zoning district. Staff has made a recommendation of denial for both the east side setback and the west side setback, as the variance does not appear to be the minimum necessary and the literal interpretation of the code does not appear to deprive the owner of use of the property. Granting the variance could confer a special privilege that is denied by others if the board is inclined and to approve the variance. The staff does not believe that the public safety and welfare will be impacted.
Thank you. Questions to staff?
Same question. This was, when this property was built, the code was not 10 feet, I assume, at the time.
That is correct.
If you look on page 92 of your packet, you'll see what the applicant's proposing to add. The question is do you have a non-conforming structure? They want to add to it. They want to continue that non-conformity. So in other words, they want to increase it. And that's what the code tries to prohibit.
All right, there's no further questions of staff. Our first card, please.
Don Human,
Mr. Human? Welcome. Please state your
Hi
name
there.
and address.
Don Human, 1965 Tranquility Lane, Titusville, Florida. So what we're doing, we're not asking for any additional square footage off the sides into the encroachments. We are asking to match the existing house as it was built. The R1B requiring the 10-foot was put in many years later, making the entire neighborhood pretty much a non-conformant. So what you're looking at is nobody in that neighborhood can do an addition of any kind, even if it falls within the 10 feet or anything, because of the, let's see, right here in LDR section 34-345, it states that a structure of nonconformance land regulations shall not be extended, enlarged, or expanded. You just shut down the whole neighborhood. Nobody in that neighborhood can expand, add on, or do anything to their house according to the reason that it's been denied by staff. And we're not asking to encroach anymore. We're just wanting to add on to the front and the back without encroaching forward or rear. We're just matching the sides.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Human?
Mr. Human, to be clear, the side yard setbacks were already encroached upon after the code changed. Is that
No.
correct?
No, the house has not been changed since 1959 when it was built legally, and the codes were changed afterwards.
I understand. What I'm saying is when the code changed, the nonconformity is this existing building was into the side yard setbacks.
True, yes.
So-
The nonconformity is the existing
And
building.
your intention is to align with these same side yard
Yes, sir.
of the existing building.
Any further questions? All right, thank you, sir. You can be seated.
Thank you.
Any other cards?
Chris Curtis.
Mr. Curtis? Welcome. Please state your name and address.
Yep. Chris Curtis, 875 Edgewood Road, Titusville. Really appreciate y'all listening to us. This is a 65-year-old house, one bathroom. When you have a family as big as mine, 5 grandkids, multiple nieces, multiple nephews, there's about 70 to 100 people that show up when we have an event. This house needs to be improved to accommodate that. That's what our intent is. It was our intent when we bought the house, that when we looked at the house 20-some years ago, there's an oak tree that's one of the largest on the East Coast that's set in the neighbor's yard. It makes this one that sits by this building a dwarf. Over time, it got unhealthy and it has been shedding limbs, literally tearing power lines down. Florida Power and Light would come out, fix the power lines, and I was always worried about it falling on my house and tearing everything up if we were to add on. So we've been delayed. Fortunately, that tree has totally come down, tore up 3 houses, power lines. They've been out there multiple times. I've paid for tree service to come out there and trim all the power lines, including where the oak tree was bowing the power line coming to my house. They refused to help out. And when I seen plastic deformation on the soffit where the pole in it, I went and paid many times, 3 times since I've owned the house, to keep all the oak tree limbs. That's all done. So we're ready to move on, make an improvement, do an addition, keep the existing width of the house. And this all started 4 years ago with Alan Keisel, the architect right down the road here, came out, walked the property, said we can do this. We went and got the plans, drawn all up, went to get the GC to lay out the roof, and it was, hey, you're gonna have the same problem with your flat roof that we've had repaired several times since we've owned it. There's not enough slope on the roof. You're gonna have leaks again. So we went back and redesigned, closed out that contract with Alan, went and opened up another one, redesigned the whole house to where we can at least have no gullies where acorns can grow oak trees in your roof, causing leaks. Everything is pretty much aerodynamically to where you won't have any problems with leakage or wind mitigation that we've argued with the insurance companies over the years. We can never get a reduction or even meet wind mitigation. This house will meet it. It will be handicap accessible, underground utilities, numerous things that the 21st century has, we're gonna put into this house. 10-foot ceilings, tandem garage front and back to where you can have a breezeway and have air instead of a stagnant two cars side by side. So this house really is going to be Fort Knox. And we want it to be our retirement home. Both me and my wife, Joan, we graduated. We went to elementary school in this town, junior high, high school. We've been around this town for a long time. We would just like to have a nice home. That's why we bought it. And that's what our intent is, to make it a benchmark for that size home in this town.
Thank you.
So, thank you very much for listening to me. Any questions?
Any questions of Mr. Curtis?
Yeah.
No? Thank you, sir. You can be seated. Any other cards?
No, ma'am.
All right, I'll close the public hearing portion, bring it back to the board for discussion or questions of staff.
We have run into this problem several times over the years with houses that are no longer conforming because of code changes. If he had wished to expand further into the setbacks than is presently already done, I would object. But seeing how this is going to be, if he keeps this particular floor plan as he's proposed, it stays within the parameters or in the same lines. I don't see how this can hurt the neighborhood at all. I can just see an enrichment for the neighborhood. So I would be in favor of this myself.
Thank you. Any further discussion?
I would agree entirely, exactly. Thank you.
All right. If there's no further discussion, then I will entertain a motion.
Then I will make the motion to approve the variance number 20-2023 at 875 Edgewood Road as presented.
All right, I have a motion. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Member Beckles,
Yes.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Member Wheelis,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez.
Yes. Your variance is approved. You all are free to head out.
Thank you very much.
Oh, come
You're
on.
welcome.
Stick around. Have fun.
All right, that brings us to our next agenda item, which would be variance number 20-2023, located at 3305 South Washington Avenue. Staff?
So regarding variance 21-2023, we request to table this application to a date certain to the next scheduled meeting on October 25th.
Okay, the request is is the applicant here?
Yes.
Does the applicant wish to table it?
Yes.
Okay.
Anderson, strong arm me.
Come on up to the microphone for me, will you?
I don't have a car.
That's okay. Since you're the applicant and it's your variance request, you should probably be involved. Sir, please state your name.
John Green,
You've heard-
3305 South Washington Avenue.
Thank you. You've heard the city's request to table this agenda item to the next meeting that we have next month. Are you in agreement to do so, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Do we have to take a vote though still, yeah? I think,
We need a
council, do we still
need a
need to
motion.
motion to table it then? Yes. Okay, I will entertain a
So
motion.
moved.
All right, we have a motion to move this variance to the next month's agenda items. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
A second, any discussion? No? Roll call, please.
Member Van Deven,
Yes.
Member Wheelis,
Yes.
Chairwoman Smith Rodriguez,
Yes?
Vice Chairman Taylor,
Yes.
Member Beckles.
Yes.
All right, so the next date will be,
October 25th.
okay, so variance 21-2023 will be addressed on October 20, did you just say 25th? Yes. October 25th of 2023. Thank you, sir, for coming. You're free to go. We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, well, we're moving on at a pretty good click, so. That brings us to our next agenda item, which will be variance number 22-2023, located at the southwest corner of Riverfront Center Boulevard and Horizon Drive. Staff.
This application has been administratively withdrawn. The requested variance was determined not to be required.
Fantastic. Moving along to our next agenda item would be variance number 23-2023, located at Silver Star Road and US 1. Ms. Anderson.
This variance has also been withdrawn. They pursued an administrative waiver and was able to meet the requirements through that process. So it was administratively withdrawn as well.
I gotta tell you, I thought we were gonna be here until 9 o'clock tonight, so that really just changed some things. Okay, that actually concludes all of our new business. While there's no public present, are there any petitions or requests from public present or any cards that were written up there, Ms. Kim?
No, ma'am.
All right, any reports from the city
No, ma'am.
or council? All right, anything from our board?
Did everyone see the email about changing the date? Didn't we vote on, or was that last meeting? The November meeting?
Actually,
The November, usually it falls the week of Thanksgiving, but this year it falls the week after Thanksgiving. So you will have if we have an application, there will be a November meeting on I think it's the 29th.
But we would not have.
You will not have one yes.
Would not have a December meeting, so, okay, that's just clarification.
that does not conflict with city council's 5th week thing for December?
No, no.
Okay, or November even, okay. Okay, great, so, that's it then. If there's nothing else from anybody else, we'll hand those pictures back to Ms. Kim, and that's it. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.